it's one of the best ways we've seen people monetize an audience, isn't it? You've got this kind of value ladder you work way up, isn't it? You can create an ebook or a little bit of information, then you create a course. It's all just information products. But then the next ones that become much more defensible are actual real products, whether it's physical or whether it's an app, a bit of software, something like that. All right, welcome to another Creator Toolbox. How you getting on, Jacob?
Good to be back.
Yeah, indeed. How are you feeling after the last episode?
Yeah, good. Nice to get behind a mic again, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a nice thing to look forward to. So, yeah, I'm glad we're doing it.
Yeah, cool. Nice. Well, I'm Colin Gray. For everyone out there listening, Jacob as well is here. Jacob Anderson, both from the Podcast Host and Alitu, and we're talking creator toolboxes, everything that you need, the nuts and bolts behind a creator business. So what have we got today, Jake? I almost said Matthew there. I'm too used to talking to Matthew on a podcast.
I won't take offense.
Shall we jump right into the tools of the week, Jacob? What have you got for us this week?
Let's do it. So I have been playing about with something called TL Draw. I saw it doing the rounds on Twitter, and it's like really early, as most AI-related things are. It gives you a hint as to what it is. So it's essentially you can come in here and sketch anything. So it's like whiteboard software. But they've made this sort of demo of here's what the sort of future could look like. And I think even right now, actually, there's little widgets and little things that people can make for their site that they otherwise just wouldn't be able to. So, for example, I've drawn a really bad picture of Pong and just described it with some post-it notes to give it some real. So you can see the red ones are the first post-it notes that I left on it, and then the orange ones were, that's not quite right. I'm going to add a few more thoughts to this. Yeah. And then all you do is, well, I've already run it. I won't run it again. So all you do is you press Make It Real.
Yeah.
After selecting everything that you want it to look at.
Yeah.
And then,
so all I'm looking at here is a really lo-fi drawing, like you've literally, as if you've drawn it with your finger on your phone, and then described it in a few words. Not even that many words, eh?
Yeah, no, that's all.
And that's actually is that so? I can see Pong right in front of me right now. You're playing Pong. Yeah. Are you controlling that right now?
Yeah. Like, that's my mouse. Yeah, it's nuts. It's a little bit buggy, and it's not perfect. Yeah. Like I say, it's very early, but the fact that it's working at all, like, like it's got it knows when you've won, it keeps track of the score. It's really, really tiny. You probably can't see it. One thing that I've seen people do that I haven't figured out how to do yet is how do I give it notes on this, like change this, change that. And I think it's actually as simple as, like, I can draw an arrow and say this bit, change this.
And you can point out a part of the interface,
Yeah, and say, change this, change this, change this. Then I can select all that, click, make real. Okay, I've refreshed. I need to give it my I won't do in the recording. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's really as simple as that.
So as a creator, you can make a little game for your audience.
Yeah.
That maybe, I mean, could you bring the kind of stuff that I've seen creators use this for? Even what we did actually at the podcast show last year, for our podcasters, was actually just take an existing concept, so Pong, for example, but turn the paddles into your face and my face, and there's something bouncing off our heads side to side, and it's like just a silly little gimmicky thing that people still find fun and quite a cool thing to put out there potentially. Yeah,
exactly. And I was actually thinking for our site for the podcast, so it's like the kind of thing that we could put on there. We made like a hosting picker. Yeah. I'm wondering how advanced can you get with it? Like, could we have it make some sort of like lead generation tool? I don't know how you then would like connect that to your email marketing software or whatever. But like, I think that's where it's going. It's not there right now. I don't think that someone who doesn't know how to code wouldn't be able to make that work. But I would say, I don't know, like, given how fast this has went, give it a year or two, and we'll be there. It's crazy.
That's really cool. Is this the kind of thing as well? I've heard about a lot of AI tools now that can actually create interfaces for not just games or something, but maybe you want to make a little web app or something like that as well. The same kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the other things that I did here, just as a little test, was, and this is actually just a screenshot, so you don't actually have to to draw in the app. This is just using GPT Vision. So for the nerdier people who are listening, it converts it into whatever you've done into a PNG. This is already a PNG, and then it reads the base 64. So it actually reads the image itself.
Yeah.
And I basically just said, make this real. So it just copied it. Not perfect, but again, I went back, give it a little note, good start, make it dark mode, add the Google logo, boom. It took me quite literally. It didn't really add everything else, but like you can see the potential.
Yeah. It's
and then that.
I mean, it's one of the best ways we've seen people monetize an audience, isn't it? Where they can. You've got this kind of value ladder you work way up, isn't it? You can create an ebook or a little bit of information, then you create a course. It's all just information products. But then the next ones that become much more defensible are actual real products, whether it's physical or whether it's a digital, like an app or a bit of software, something like that. But it's always been ridiculously high moat. Like it's really hard to make. You have to hire a team, or you have to be a coder or something like that, or it's really expensive. But it just means that, and like you say, it's going to be a long time before you can make someone really sophisticated. Like you're an accountancy podcaster, and you can actually build like a zero competitor. It's going to be a while before that's possible. But just to give an example, it was something. So I still have, I suppose, but it's not very active. A mountain biking podcast. And a website. So it was a blog and a podcast together, just talking about mountain biking, because I used to be really into that stuff. I'm a bit, but more in my younger kid-free days, to be fair. But back then I had an idea, and I tried to get this made for an app whereby for my training, I wanted to do more cycling, more swimming, more running to get better at it, so that it would apply to my mountain biking, but do triathlons and stuff like that as well. And the idea was that I could challenge my friends to do something to motivate us all. But the problem is that my brother is way better than me, so I wanted to challenge him, but like I'm never going to be as fast as him on a mile, so it kind of seemed pointless. And I've got a friend who's a way better swimmer than me, so same with him. But I thought about just creating a really simple app, and you could do it almost in a spreadsheet where you challenge to get better, essentially, like the percentage better. So if I take 7 minutes to run a mile, can I reduce that by 20%? And he's got to do the same thing. Both of them have got to do the same thing, but obviously it's a different time. But you can challenge based on just a percentage. So it's actually a pretty simple concept. But I wanted to build a whole tool around that. And I played around with it. I tried coding it myself. I tried employing some other people to do it, but it was just too pernickety, too fiddly, just didn't have the time. But that feels like the kind of thing I could build in something like this.
Yeah.
Because it's quite defined. Yeah, it's quite simple. And I think, almost any creator could have like a product based on some little challenge, some little desire, some little cool thing that their audience would want to do. So that's, it's really cool that kind of stuff's coming out.
Yeah, for sure. It's really exciting.
Nice. Okay, cool. Yeah. Right. So for me this week, tools, I'm just neck deep in community and teaching platforms at the moment. So I suppose I wanted to just kind of share some of my findings there, because there's way too many out there. Well, it's not too many, I suppose, but there's loads of options out there, and it took us a long time to get to choosing, to building, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You've seen me kind of tear my hair out over the last 2 months, 3 months even. It's maybe even longer than that.
Yeah. It's been a road, it's been a journey.
Yeah, but I mean, I think this applies to just about any creator, whether you're a podcaster, a blogger, a YouTuber. Like we said, one of those first kind of rungs in the value ladder is often whether it's a little info product or a course or a membership is often quite a good one. So
that's it.
Yeah. So let's run through a few of them. Like we started out on Circle, didn't we? Circle is one of our, like, where we run our community. And yeah, I mean, Circle's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great. I love Circle. It's great at what it does. They've what they launched with, and I think they're just trying to expand it now, and they're maybe just not as far ahead in certain places, like specifically courses. Yeah. They're not as far ahead in courses as other people are, but then other people aren't as far ahead or don't feel as developed in community. So yeah, I think they're fantastic if it's like community first.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly my thoughts too. It's a great community platform. I think it is. It's the best community platform I've found out there just now for simply letting people interact, building little areas for people to collaborate, to communicate, all that kind of stuff. It's a great little platform, and they have got courses, like you say, but it's very basic, and it's really hard to. My trouble with it was really hard to guide people around. Like, you just kind of have this big bucket of courses. You can't really create a curriculum. You can't give too much guidance. You can't show them to people very easily and guide them through. So we've always used WordPress. And I used to use, well, we still have, to be fair, our old V1 of the Academy built in WordPress on an LMS plugin called Memberoni.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really nice, actually. It's a really good little platform. Takes a lot of work. That's the trouble. It's quite hard. You've got to keep a WordPress site updated. It's kind of there's a lot less design help. So if you want to make it look really good or be quite branded, it's a lot more hard work. But then again, on the other hand, Circle, very little in the way of branding. Most of these, it is quite hard to get them branded. So if you do have the development chops, then you can customize your WordPress site and those kind of plugins more. So that's the advantage. But downside, obviously, being the maintenance and the work involved in that. And I did start to investigate this plugin called Buddy Boss as well. Looks really promising. You quite like the look of that one, eh?
Yeah, actually, it looks great. I just have trust issues with WordPress plugins that look great and end up being really fiddly and just slow and it's probably all different now.
No, I don't know. I'm not sure. I think there's definitely good and bad ones. I think this one could be a good one, but I think that's exactly it. There's just, you see all the screenshots, you see these kind of really fully functioning things, and then you try and implement it yourself, and it turns out that there's so many different settings, but also so many different little restrictions and so many little things. In many ways, you just want it kind of managed for you, and that's what the other platforms do. So I kind of veered away from that in the end, thinking more and more these days, I think I'm willing to sacrifice a bit of customizability, a bit of flexibility to just make things easier to work with and spend less time on all that background stuff that doesn't really make the slightest bit of difference to your members. So moved away from that. Other ones we went through, I think Thinkific is a really good example of that, actually. Thinkific, the three of us, me, you, and Allegra, all thought, this looks really good, quite a powerful platform. But once you actually start to get in there properly, it's just really quite clunky and really restrictive. And there's all these really weird little niggles that just got to me over time. I built almost the whole thing in there before abandoning it because it was just too much. Too many little niggles kind of added up to one big problem. So and the other two that I played around with, I like Podia a lot. I think Podia is a really nice little product. I think it treads that line of simplicity but flexibility, kind of templates that you can customize a fair bit but don't give you too much to fiddle with. So if we hadn't ended up where we had, which I'll share in a sec, I think I would have went with Podia. But I just it was the community in the end put me off that. Actually, the community just didn't really have the flexibility and the power I wanted as well. Like, there needed to be more detail around, like, being able to set up separate spaces, give access to separate spaces for some people but not others, like have different levels of them, that kind of stuff. So the community part was just the troublesome part for me there. And the final one's Teachable. Teachable is a really nice platform for just selling courses and digital products, but it's got zero in terms of community. So I kind of ruled that out in the end.
It's quite old school feeling now, to be honest, Teachable. Like on the back and the front ends, you know. I don't know what it is about it. It just feels a little bit unloved and musty.
It's a funny one, isn't it? Because it was probably, I don't know, my memory is it was one of the first out that really kind of started to tackle that area. Eh?
It was. It's like a big player. There still are, like, if you go looking for something to hold your courses, most people will come across Teachable at least first or second.
Absolutely. Yeah. But you're right. It just doesn't seem to have developed at all.
No.
Like it's barely changed. And I might be being totally unfair here. They might have added a whole bunch of nice little things, but that's the thing. I think my impression is they're all just little things that haven't made a much of an impact, and it's still just the same old. And there's a lot to be said for that, isn't there? Like going all in on what you know well, what you do well, and I'm sure they do very well on that basis.
Yeah.
But I don't know. My impression is, and I think you kept coming back to this, was community needs to be a big part of what we're doing.
Yeah. It's kind of part, but not to go into it too much just now. But I think that's got a lot to do with the fragmentation of social media. And I think that's why it's becoming much more important to have community in your learning spaces, because people can't go in the same way that they could to Twitter. Twitter's not really the same as it was. Facebook groups don't really work the same anymore. I feel like things are moving much more towards sort of smaller. We're going from forums to social media back to forums, kind of. Not really forums, but more like whatever communities are becoming now. Or that's my take on it. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I like the way you put it the other day. Actually, when we were chatting about this, you felt like social media had killed the old school forum, but what forums have now killed social media. It's going to be going back again. Yeah, I thought that was quite insightful. So yeah, totally. So yeah, where we've ended up actually in the end, and this was thanks to, in part, one of the things we talked about last week around us switching to ConvertKit recently, was that ConvertKit brought to mind Mighty Networks again, because they just partner. Shows some of the power of like integrations, doesn't it? It's like working with other partners, collaborations. Because I really hadn't. I used Mighty Networks ages ago, like maybe 3-4 years ago, for a community I was a part of, and I didn't actually like it very much. But I think that was a combination of it's changed a lot since then, and I think that community didn't use it very well.
Yeah.
So, but when ConvertKit announced that, I had another look back at it, and I thought, you know what, this is actually really good. And I think Mighty Networks now has the best balance I've found of a really good community space, been able to give a lot of different like flexibility around permissions to spaces, like being able to kind of organize things really well, being able to, and this was the thing that really kind of won me over, was the way that you can feature parts. I don't even know the language really they use. Like I can feature a course, I can feature a conversation, I can feature a product, I can feature just a blog post. Like you can create blog posts inside it as well, and you can have all these things side by side at the top of any given space and have full control over how they appear. So, and for me as a teacher by background, like my big thing is for these kind of places is you need to be able to give people a framework, a guidance, a curriculum to get in there. Otherwise, they just end up and they get like 20 different courses thrown at them, 50 different resources thrown at them. They don't know where to go. They don't know where to start. So that was what won me over, the fact that Mighty Networks, every single space in there, you can name nicely, you can organize them nicely, but then you can also give them a little bit of guidance at the top of every single one. And put them in. And every space as well, you can have like a chat attached, as well as a feed, as well as a kind of resource bank. There's just some really nice customization around what you can include in each space and how you can organize them all. So that's where
the flip side of that is like, I think their approach to building this product has been, let's create everything and give them access to everything. There's a lot in there that you can do. It's so feature rich, so dense, that I think I've been part of a few Mighty Networks communities, and it's just been too much. So I think it has the sort of flexibility that we're probably looking to get from WordPress, but it's managed. No, obviously not quite the same. It's not like you can, completely change the layout or anything like that. But it's great. You just have to be careful, I think. Have to be wary of not using too much. But they've done a good thing, I think, in giving you the option and the flexibility to use whatever you want to use.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, agreed. I ended up testing everything, and the whole place looked a bit like a mess at first. I've kind of cut it all back now. But and it is. Oh, it's pretty hard to figure your way around it in the first place. Like I took a couple of days to kind of get used to where stuff was, and there's settings buried like 12 layers deep and all the kind of pages. And so it's hard to get your head around. There's a bit of a steep learning curve. but I found it worth it so far. I'm going to come back. Well, we can come back to this in a few months once we've actually been running it actively for a little while, because you never know what happens once you start really getting into something. But yeah, I'm liking it so far. So yeah, that's a wee kind of rundown on community and teaching platforms as of right now, December 23, as far as I'm concerned.
Nice.
Cool. All right. Have you got one more? You've got another tool here. What's this?
Just a little thing. I had such an this is so cool moment the other day. So I already pay for going back to AI. I already pay for ChatGPT Pro, right? So I was running a Cyber Monday sale. I had to get 50 discount codes put into Stripe, our payment processor, and I think what I'd done was I generated them, put them into Stripe, and then I couldn't get them back out. I didn't have a copy of it anywhere. And I was like, great, I'm going to have to put these codes actually into the place that we're delivering the codes. And I was going to have to manually copy and paste them one by one. What I actually did was I took a screenshot of the 2 pages of codes, dropped that into ChatGPT and said, just make a list, please. Thank you. And I just continued on with another task and came back to it. It was great. It's I don't know.
And it just read them off the image.
Yeah, it just read them off the image. And spot checked a few because I might just make it up. But no, it was working fine.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
I've been finding more and more things to do, like really weird little things to do with it as well, like stuff kind of like that. Like now that you can bring in all the different modalities, especially being able to upload data, I've used it for that a fair few times now.
Yeah.
Like I'm pretty good with a spreadsheet. Like I'm good with Excel, and I can figure out how to take like a whole big bunch of stuff and turn it into the thing that I need. But it would take half an hour still, like to do all the formulas and figure it out and format it. But with ChatGPT, you just upload it and say, right, so I've got like 27 different things in a list here. Can you just pick out just these parts of it and give me a list of that? And it just, it's really good.
I found it really good for like long form answers and stuff as well. So any like surveys, obviously, have to remove personal identifying data and all that kind of stuff. But if you've got long form answers in there, you can ask it to either just give you a text response, or give me some of the ideas and themes that are going on in here, or actually expand the CSV and add a column with tags in it as well, so that you can kind of go through it. It's great. It's stuff that you just couldn't automate before at all.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the coaching side, I'm using more and more as well, like GA4. try to set up reports in Google Analytics for has the guidance, the instructions are just like, I mean, they're extensive, but they're too much. They're just awful. They're so dense. Just try to find out how to do. It's terrible. Anyway, I just type it into ChatGPT now. I say, right, I want to figure out how to create a report of time on page for all our visitors to this one particular blog post. And it just gives me a set of steps, and I just follow it through, and it does it. It's perfect.
I want a plugin. I want a plugin so that it can actually just make reports.
Oh yeah, that'd be good.
That would be so good.
That probably isn't far away, to be fair.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, no, a nice one. Yeah, we should have that as a segment on the show. Like, what have we used it for? Fancy this week.
Yeah.
New things we've used. Cool. All right. What about some creators of the week then? We've got a few of these noted down. Right. My one is, so there's a guy I've been following for probably 2-3 years now. His name is Richie, and I don't know his second name now that I think about it. I don't know if he shares it. He probably does share it on the channel, but it's not a big part of the brand. The brand is Team Richie. It's also sometimes he's had Hustle Made, HSTL Made in the channel as well. And essentially, originally, it was about CrossFit. It was about the fact that he was a CrossFit athlete. He was developing all the skills around that, and I was into that. So I'm still do that, but I was kind of heavy into that like 3-4 years ago. Really enthusiastic about that content, followed along with a lot of it, and I really got into his. He's like one of these kind of very successful, but still kind of mid-tier. So like, well, I don't know, is that being unfair? He's got 350k subs basically. So 350,000 subscribers.
It kind of is though. Like when you compare it to some of the channels out there.
Yeah. So I mean, like that's super successful by any measure, isn't it? But it's like you kind of you have too many of these comparisons of people hitting 1 million subscribers and stuff like that. But anyway, for us and like the people that we kind of in our kind of tier, that's a dream number of subscribers. So he's very successful by any measure. Just a few, there's a few things just really interesting about his channel. A couple of things I want to dig into, get your thoughts on. Like one thing is he does much better on short. I don't know whether this is a thing. I need to do a bit of research around this. Let me know what you think. He does way better on shorts than he does on normal videos these days.
Yeah.
So he gets like, every time he posts a short, he gets like 30 to 60,000 or so, compared to maybe 25 to only 30,000 on normal videos. So around half on his normal videos, that kind of thing. Is that normal, do you think?
I think it is. We've had a similar experience. Some of our shorts that we've
some of them have done really well.
It's a discoverability thing, and it's I think it's just the behavior of how people are consuming video. Like for me personally, I don't often go on YouTube just to find a 15-minute video anymore. And I used to do that all the time. I've got, what I'll do now is if I've got 5 minutes to scroll, I'll go on the shorts. You know, I'll go on shorts and I'll just, because it knows me well and it knows what I'm into. It knows what I'm into right now. So like I think that makes sense.
Up some delicious YouTube shorts on a platter, basically.
Exactly.
Just for you.
Yeah. And like obviously longer form videos do that already. You've got the recommended, but it kind of makes sense because you can watch more shorts in a session than you can a video. So it might not be. Yeah, exactly.
I wonder, I'll bring it up actually, because his average video, his videos are quite long actually, by any stretch, by any kind of measure. I think they're like 20, 30, 40 minutes. Although is that long these days, I wonder. But I like them. He's kind of very traditional vlogging format. Like he just kind of carries his camera around. It's all quite, let me get this up one sec. It's all quite kind of rough and ready in many ways. So this is actually the other one I was going to share as well. Where's that screen gone? It's rough and ready. It's like, I wonder if that still works, that format, because that's kind of what I was slightly curious about, is whether, you know, the kind of under-edited type of thing, like he talks, like there's not a lot of kind of curation in there. There's a lot of just general chat. There's like cameras in the back of his car, like filming him and his girlfriend just chatting on the way to work, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's a funny one. I don't know. I don't know if that kind of thing is kind of dying away a little bit in favor of like hugely overproduced videos. Like you look at the kind of, what they call it, the beastification of YouTube, like how much work he puts into his videos, and even like the non-Mr. Beast type people. Like there's so many like really good documentary channels now and stuff like it's more like TV now than the kind of old school vlogging, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think there's still space for both though. No?
You think?
Yeah. I don't know. It depends. Like, what are you sitting down to watch? Are you sitting down to watch entertainment? Are you wanting sort of knowledge or that kind of thing? You know, like the one that I talked about last time, Bald and Bankrupt. That's a great example of how the content actually can just be more important than the production value.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. It actually kind of adds to it. It's real. Like this, it would. I don't know. It's it's doing a different job, I think.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and it's kind of much more personal, isn't it? I think it builds maybe it builds lower numbers, but much higher engagement potentially. I wonder if it's something around that. Like people are really into it. Like so that kind of leads into the other stuff that I think is really interesting about him. So he shared a video recently about what was it called? It was called "Losing $250,000 Sucks." I think it was. And essentially the story was that his channel's been really successful, as we've talked about. Like that's a massive amount of subscribers. Here it's here, losing $250,000 sucks. And it's but he talked about the fact that because of that, they decided to double down on it. And they decided to go into products and merch. And he's got loads of merchandise around it. Like they've got loads of clothes and stuff with the Hustle Made, this HSTL branding. It's really cool stuff actually. And he talked in a video about they really went in on quality as well. So they went on expensive stuff, and so the margins are lower, costs more to get it. It also means that you find that if you want to go the kind of print on demand method, the quality doesn't tend to be brilliant because because to get really good quality garments printed, they have to buy massive bulk. So he's had to spend like 100 grand on getting 1,000 jumpers. Oh, that's not right. They don't cost 100 quid per jumper, but it's not like a million miles off that.
Yeah.
They've had to spend a lot of money on getting this product in and buying in bulk. And essentially it didn't go as well as they wanted. They didn't sell half as many as they expected, maybe partly misjudging what the demand is, partly economic environment, all that kind of stuff. But it was really it was a really interesting video because I think it probably reflected, I don't know, a mindset that I know we've gone through. I've gone through certainly for our business, and I know a lot of other people do around, right, this is going well. I need to do more. I need to go bigger. I need to do something. I need to add to this. And that's exactly what they did. Because he said in the video as well, they can afford it. They've managed to ride this out, this kind of losing £250,000 because they had built up a really big cash buffer through the last couple of years. So it's obviously been a really profitable business up until now, just with the content and potentially a little bit of merch and whatever else he does, sponsored brand content, that kind of stuff. But the merch, the product just hasn't done quite as well, even though they added it in. So it's a funny one here because I don't want to say don't do it, but there's definitely something around it's not right for everyone. And sometimes I think there is a really good reason to, if a business is going really well and is quite profitable, and sometimes it's a good idea to stick with that rather than kind of add more and make it more work for potentially not much extra benefit.
Yeah. It can come in many forms, but trying to scale too fast. Essentially.
Exactly. Yeah. But that, I enjoyed that video. That's, I think last time I looked, that video, so it's a higher view. It's got 2 to 3 times these normal views as well. So it's obviously resonated with his audience.
Yeah.
So,
people love a pain story.
Well, totally. Yeah, a disaster story. But he's a really good creator. Love the stuff he does. Super consistent. Just has stuff coming out all the time. Puts so much into it. Travels a lot. Some of his videos are really interesting because he's actually across in the US, visiting some of the big, massive CrossFit stars. He's a lot of the benefit he's got from it, I think, has been able to go to these events as a media creator and actually chat to all of the big names and stuff like that. And he's got such access now because of this too. So, there's other benefits to doing this stuff than just the money side of things.
Cool.
But yeah.
Okay.
All right. What about yourself? Who's your creator of the week this week?
My creator of the week, maybe the century, is
I didn't know that. Right. I've got a drum roll sound effect. Where's the
so Seth Godin. Seth Godin has been running his blog, and I love Seth.
Not overhyped.
Not overhyped. I love him for many reasons, but the reason I actually wanted to talk about him this week was one of his probably more underappreciated works compared to his books and the lectures he's done and stuff like that. But he's been running his blog since 2002, and I think you could count on both hands how many days he's missed a post.
Yeah.
And that's daily. That is insane. And I just think it's one of the best examples of consistency out there at all.
Yeah.
And it's a really interesting format as well, because my take on it is that he isn't necessarily trying to teach you anything.
Yeah.
He's trying to document for himself. He's trying to work out his own thoughts and work out his own philosophy and keep track of his own learnings. And that just becomes naturally good content, essentially. But I think it's been a big part of that consistent bit of content every day. They're not long posts, they're quite short. Some of them are a few sentences, but that and he says so himself how much that has helped him gain perspective, gain respect, help him get into the routine of making. It's something that you or me could do. We could write a post that length in 15 minutes every day. They're not super polished. There's nothing fancy, but the benefits of being that consistent, even when you're already huge, are massive. So there's a little segment in here. If you skip to the sort of first chapter, if you hover, he's got Seth in there, and he's just talking about his thoughts on essentially being consistent
Okay.
for 7,000
Cool.
days.
Yeah, okay. Let's hear from Seth himself. Seth, what do you think? Like, glad you came on our podcast. What's your thoughts?
Yes, I have
Sorry, I
not
should have
missed a day. I'm 7,000 plus posts into it. Writing a blog every day has been a fantastic practice for me. I don't know how many people read it. I don't seek to monetize it. That's not what it's for. What it's for is I made a decision one time to write every day. And so I don't have to revisit that decision. I don't post a blog post because I feel like it. And I don't post a blog post because it's perfect. I post a blog post because it's tomorrow. And that idea helps the work move forward.
Oh, I love that. That's it ties in so many different ideas. Like that's kind of Stephen Pressfield's War of Art as well, isn't it? Like we don't like amateurs procrastinate and get like all tied up and making things perfect and getting writer's block, and professionals, writer block is not a thing because you just turn up and do the work.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And also the kind of the structure there as well, like they're taking away decisions. I love that too. I always think about that. Like, what can I do to make it so that I don't fatigue myself, decision fatigue. I just turn up and I just get it done. I think structure is a huge thing for that, but his structure is, it's just one post a day. That's all it is.
That's it. It's not overcomplicated. I love it. Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah. All right. Well, we can all be Seth then. All we have to do is write something every single day for 7,000 days. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. And actually next week I might do Behind the Brand, that YouTube channel. He does a lot of cool things.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool. All right. What else have we got this week then? Should we pop on to what do we make? What we've been up to?
Yeah.
Update on past activities. What you've been up to?
Well, I've been up to. Well, one of the things that I've been up to this week is outsourcing. I thought that'd be worth a quick chat about.
Okay. Yeah.
So I built a little tool called the Alitu Show Planner, which is using a little bit of AI in the background, taking in some questions from people about an idea that they have for a podcast, and then try to turn that into a plan for a show with like a script. It'll generate name ideas for you. It's a cool little tool. But I am not a developer. I have a little bit of like technical background, but not really enough to justify pulling this off. And really, the only reason I managed to actually get a workable tool is because I used some ChatGPT to help me write it, and more coach me on how to write the code. There was a fair bit of copy paste too. But anyway, it's gotten to a point now where actually it's working quite well for us as a lead gen tool. It's good, but we've got some ideas of things that are maybe not working quite right, some things that we want to add to it. Long story short, we want to find a developer to do it. Now, I've been on the other end of this. I've been a freelancer. I've been a freelance developer, actually, mostly on the WordPress side of things, which is why I'm so anti-WordPress, because after working in it, I don't think I ever want to go back to it. But yeah, so it's always a bit of a weird experience. It's not the first time that I've tried to outsource something while working with you, but it's always a bit of a strange experience for me, and I'm never quite sure. Like, one of the questions that I asked you the other day is like, how do I know what a fair rate is? How do I know? Like, how do you pick? So you've done loads of outsourcing. What's your top 3 tips on trying to outsource stuff? Because everyone needs to do it eventually for many things.
Yeah, I think the main thing I learned over the years was there's probably 2 things. The recruitment part is the hardest by far, because there's some great platforms out there that you can search around on, but they're utterly gamified by the people that are on there. So if you post a project, for example, on Upwork is one that I've used a lot. Still a good platform, but it's so saturated that if you post a project that's kind of in any way general, like it's kind of help me, I'm looking for a VA, or I'm looking for a developer to help me build an app, or I'm looking for a blog writer to help me write blog posts, you're going to get literally hundreds of applications. So the key to recruitment is being the most ridiculously specific about a very defined first project. And that first project, you need to make sure that there's so many guidelines around it. So I want something developed. Here's like 7 different skills that I need in it. And here's exactly what we're going to build over the first part of this project. I have a budget to pay for, $500 for this first project, which will qualify a lot of people as well. You'll get some people who are very good that can build it in a few hours that charge a lot, and that's fine. You'll get some people that aren't very good. I'll take like 2 weeks, but they charge much less, but you'll be able to weed them out in the next stage. You know what I mean? So it's figuring out a project, your kind of idea around the cost that you think that project is worth to you. And then I think that starts to define how much the hourly rate is, because the hourly rate on these platforms is just so arbitrary, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like it's you count out people who charge $100 an hour because you think that's way too expensive. But it turns out that they can actually do it in 2 hours. And somebody that charges $5 an hour looks cheap as heck, but they take like 3 months to build it because they're not very good.
Yeah.
So it's less about the hourly rate and much more about what this project is worth to you. And I often do put in something around like the kind of ongoing state. I think that does attract more people, like say, this is a defined project for an initial period, but actually we do want to work with somebody long term. So if you're interested in that, like we'd particularly welcome you to, or say something defined in the application. Like if you're interested in longer term work, please let me know. Give me a wee rundown on like where you work, who you work with, what your kind of common like tools are. Do you use Adobe for image editing, that kind of stuff, and tell me your 3 hours per week at the moment for ongoing work. And if you get really specific like that, it's a really easy way to weed people out, because people who are just sending a copy and paste application, they won't like go through that detail. That's kind of the real thing for me. Like you end up with 100 applications. You need a really quick, easy way to go through and just discount people. And that's one of them. Like you say, there used to be an old trick on Upwork where you put in the application, at the bottom of the application, I need to weed out the spam requests for this. So if you're a real human and you've got to this point, put the code word panda at the top of your application.
I think you did one of them. So you did one of them in the one that I applied to. Yeah, that's how I started working here. Yeah, through Upwork. That's how I started. But I remember that. Yeah. That's smart.
So there's a few things anyway. But it's hard. You'll always go through a few people who are not your style. I hesitate to say people who are bad, because everyone, like, you don't get many people who aren't trying and are properly trying to scam you or just not work very well or whatever. But you'll get people that don't suit your working style, don't suit your, your personality, your values, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But you'll go through a few of them to find somebody that you will work with. And for example, we've got a person, we met through Upwork, but even I started working, one lady that works in our company has been working with me longer than anyone else in this entire company. And I met her through Upwork as a kind of old school looking for a VA. And she just helped me out with a whole bunch of stuff. She was just very good and just started doing more and more and more stuff. And now she's a proper full employee of the company. And that was all through a platform like that. So you can find great people through it. If you kind of, if you figure out a way to do that filtering in the first step, I think.
Yeah. Some really good advice. Cool.
Cool. And my squirrel podcast that I've been planning in your show planner in the background, my names are going to be
Telltales.
Telltales. Nuts about squirrels. Guffaw. Scurious banana. Is that like a Latin name for squirrels or something?
Oh, it might be. Squirrelations podcast.
Scurious Bonanza. Give me some more. I want to see some more. Squirrel Tales, the nutshell, acorned, the squirrel show. Yeah, I like it.
So
All righty. Cool. Yeah, that's a good one. Me, what have I been doing? Emails. Really just working on emails, actually. Still on this, we've moved into ConvertKit now. I'm kind of thinking, really kind of starting to think much more deeply about the longer term funnel at the moment. So I can kind of update on this over the weeks, but at the moment it's really thinking about changing our newsletter a little bit. Yeah. I'm not sure how much this applies to other people. I'm not even sure it's the best idea in the world. But I think it could work for us. The thing we're thinking about changing is we used to write, we still do, I suppose, but we're changing right now from a newsletter, which was created every single week to reflect things that I have been using this week, articles that we've published this week, other articles externally that I've found that are really useful to podcasters, a bit of gear that I found that's really useful. It's kind of like a collection of cool things.
Pretty
Useful to
classic
podcasters.
newsletter format.
Oh, totally. Yeah, exactly. And making that every single week. And it being relatively general, quite mixed across all the categories, across all the levels of podcasting, that kind of stuff. So everyone, hopefully, in our audience finds something useful to them, but there'll be at least a couple of things in there that's not relevant to their current stage or level or whatever as well. And what we're changing over to is actually looking to create a much more evergreen sequence, which again is nothing new either, but actually treating it like so when somebody signs up, actually they don't go on our newsletter at all. They get probably a couple of emails every single week, one of which is something that we really try hard to tailor to their current interest, current level, and another one which is actually a completely automated digest of the stuff we're publishing. So it's kind of trying to be much more personalized with the real kind of cool things that I found this week. So it will still be a few cool resources for them, as in blog posts, some of ours, some external, some gear, but much more tailored to what they are thinking about right now in terms of level and category. And then basically automating the kind of general, here's all the other stuff we've published this week in case there is something of interest to you, and making that much briefer. So we'll see how that goes, but yeah.
Early days, but the first small test of that sort of digest format seems to have worked really well.
Yes. Yeah.
Like ridiculously well.
Yeah. Open rate of 47, was it, percent?
Yeah. And like nearly 10% clicks. It was like
really good clicks.
8.9 or something.
Yeah. Which is better than any previous pointers that I've done. So I don't know exactly why that is or how, or it was a bit of a segment of our audience. It's definitely a more engaged recent segment of our audience. So that could have a fair bit to do with it, but still I was surprised how well that went. So yeah, maybe there's something around that. Like we're talking about, people just have so many things to do. Like you going into saying, I've only got 5 minutes right now, so I'll just watch shorts. So maybe being more specific is actually like a really worthwhile thing. So many people do newsletters these days, and we have as well, where you're trying to cram, you think, I can only email people once a week, can't I? Because I don't want to bother them more than that. So I'm going to cram 7 different things in here.
Yeah.
Whereas maybe people would actually prefer 7 different, very short emails every day.
If you think about it, it kind of makes sense though intuitively, right? Because our classic newsletter that we've done for years now, it's got 2 sort of call to actions in it. The first is read this and learn something, and the second is click one of these many links. But if we're just sending one email with the entire purpose of click one of these links, that's like, I don't know. There's no choice there. If they've opened it and they're interested, the next possible step is click on something. They're not going to waste whatever time, or not waste time. They're not going to use up their available time by reading anything that's already in the email. They're going to click and go to the site. It kind of makes sense. We're removing choice and requirement.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, dead on. Yeah. And the tailoring stuff, the personalization, all that kind of stuff, I'm trying to figure that out at the moment, but it's tricky to do that because people do jump around in interest so much. But I think we can do at least a level of it, a bit of it.
Yeah. So I think like even loosely, like you say, it's hard to get it to like match up exactly to what stage of the journey they're in. But I think even doing it this way at all, having some sort of structure and flow towards a direction, I think that's going to help a lot, because what we do is what we teach is quite linear. It's like you don't have a podcast, and then you have to make a plan for a podcast, and then you have to do this and you have to do that, and there's like this whole sequence of events that gets you to the future where you have a podcast that has X many listeners and all that kind of stuff. And there's just things that you have to do on that journey. But like if we're sending just a newsletter every single week, that is sort of kind of just based on what you're thinking about or what you're doing, like Kind of. It actually doesn't make that much sense because you're not learning how to start a podcast, even though you know how to teach all the stuff. Like, it's just like at the whim of like what you, So I don't know. I'm really interested to see how this works out. I'm quite excited. So we'll make sure to share what we learn.
Me too. Cool. All right, let's tie up there. Thanks, Jacob. Hope you out there enjoyed it as well. We are asking for feedback. That's all we want you to do right now is let us know what you think. What parts do you like? What parts don't you like? What do you want us to cover? Tools, creators, all that stuff in the future. You can get in touch most directly over on X/Twitter, which is at the Podcast Host. The Podcast Host on there. And if you really don't like there, then go over to LinkedIn, probably the next best. Find me as Colin Gray. Search Colin Gray Podcast and you'll find me on there. Perfect. All right. Cheers, Jacob. Cheers, listeners. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye. Cheers.